Chilling audio recordings now released to the public from a Minnesota double murder trial. Byron Smith convicted on all 4 counts after gunning down 2 teenagers who broke into his home. Smith shooting Nick Brady and Haley Kiefer 9 times after they entered his house, and he recorded the whole thing. And we want to warn you that these recordings, they are a bit disturbing. Here is Byron Smith talking to himself right after killing both teens.
I felt like I was cleaning up a mess. Not like spilled food. Not like vomit. Not even like diarrhea. It's the worst mess possible. And I was stuck with it. I have not yet called the sheriff. They weren't human. I don't see them as human. I see them as vermin.
15 minutes of that tape. Brian Claypool is a criminal defense attorney. Doug Burns is a former prosecutor. Brian, how do you defend that?
Well, I would have defended it by one of 2 things. Either have Smith come in and testify and talk about this profound fear that he had the weeks and months leading up to the shootings, to show the jury the lens through which he was looking, that he was just so terrified that he had to do this. The other option I would have chosen after hearing those tapes would be a possible mental illness defense, to maybe as a mitigating factor to reduce this from first-degree murder to possible manslaughter. Because I got to tell you, Heather, hearing those tapes, he sounds like a man mentally ill.
You know, Doug, as a prosecutor, these tapes, is that what did it for the jury? I mean, it only took them 3 hours to determine his fate. Yeah,
no question about it whatsoever. He, unfortunately for him, he convicted himself in this case. And the reason I say that is because if he hadn't had an audio tape of what happened, and if he hadn't had made the statements that he did to the police, in which he specifically just absolutely buried himself, because he described how he removed the threat that they presented, and by the way, he was entitled to defend himself based on that threat. And then he talked about a clean final kill shot, and he just sunk himself. I mean, because the point is, once the threat was gone, he had no further right to use deadly force.
Yeah, likened to that of a deer hunter.
Right.
Even went on to say that, you know, once he shot someone, he didn't want them to suffer, trying to explain why he continued to shoot. Right. Brian, in the state of Minnesota, it is legal to do this inside your home if you are in fear for your life, amongst other things. But the surveillance tape and the audio tape, and you mentioned the possibility of trying to make him seem more human. They did allow the jury to hear his explanation and what he had to say to authorities when he was arrested, correct?
Right. Well, they did, but that doesn't provide a proper context for him making all these comments on the audio tape. You hear clips of audio tape, you hear clips of interviews with law enforcement, but you don't have him taking the stand to explain to the jury what precisely is going through his mind at the moment he makes a statement that seems so horrifying. That was crucial. And the reality here, though, Heather, is that technology has become a third eye of justice. You have law enforcement, forensics, and now technology. Text messages, phone messages, like in the Donald Sterling case, and now here we have an audio. So people have to be mindful of what they're saying and doing now.
Well, this technology, you know, he implemented himself. So, Doug, what do you think will happen next to him?
Well, I will say this, and I think my colleague will find this interesting. I mean, apparently there was information that one of the individuals had broken into his house repeatedly in the past and so forth. And I think the judge, Brian, kept a lot of that out. So I think maybe on appeal there might be some hope there.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons he said that he set this whole thing up, because he had been burglarized before, and they, in fact, had stolen his guns. All right, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.